In today's video, we're going to be discussing some more NHL trade rumors. Today's video mainly focuses on Phil Kessel, Max Domi, and Tyler Johnson. And that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, we have some more NHL trade rumors to discuss, and Phil Kessel is in them yet again. I know this rumor does not want to go away, keeps persisting, and every time it seems to come up through the different media sources, it seems to be an expanded number of teams that are looking to acquire his services, and the Pens are that much more interested in making it happen. So I've seen the latest reports indicate there's probably 6 or 7 teams that are apparently interested, or that different media sources feel would be a really good fit for Phil Kessel should the Penguins pull the trigger here and make a deal. I'm still a little bit skeptical that this type of deal would go down, but at the same time it does kind of make a little bit of sense, but at the same time not really. I mean, obviously Phil Kessel's coming off a career season with 92 points, had more points than Crosby this year, so at the same time, why would you want to trade him? But a lot of the speculation was that he has a bit of a rift with the team, more specifically Coach Mike Sullivan, and that they haven't been getting along about who he's playing with, and he didn't play with Malkin much through the playoffs. Wasn't happy about that. And, you know, as we all know, Phil can be, he's a little bit of a unique guy. He has a bit of a reputation for being somewhat difficult to coach. And as we all know, when Rick Tocchet was an assistant coach with Pittsburgh, it was widely discussed that he kind of kept the peace, if you will, between Kessel and the rest of the coaching staff and management. And he was kind of good for Phil to kind of keep everything running smoothly. But now that Tocchet's not there, to kind of be that middle piece, the middleman to kind of between him and the head coach, that maybe things aren't going so well. Quite common in the NHL for players to have almost closer relationships with the assistant coaches than the head coaches. It's very, very common. A lot of times, you know, with the head coach, they have a little bit more authority. Sometimes things can be a little bit different. And a player like Phil Kessel just seemed to really mesh well with Rick Tocchet. So could he be on the move? I mean, if the team really feels it's a problem with the relationship and they're concerned it could impact the team morale and in the room and all that, it's certainly a possibility. But just based on the fact that they didn't win the Cup this year, and based on the fact that Kessel didn't have a terrific playoff, I wouldn't make the move based on that. I mean, he had a terrific regular season. He's got a long history here of being very successful. So, I mean, I wouldn't give up on him just over one bad playoff round or whatever. I mean, he had 1 goal in the playoffs. He did have, I think, 7 or 8 assists. But, you know, there were a lot of nights in the playoffs when Kessel just didn't seem to be engaged, in my opinion. But either way, this rumor doesn't want to go away. There's been teams that have been linked to him. Mainly, the main ones I think would make the most sense. What had happened would be the Calgary Flames, the New Jersey Devils, the Minnesota Wild, and maybe the Arizona Coyotes. Now, if you take a look at the Flames, they'd probably have a defenseman to send back the other way. Penguins would probably want Dougie Hamilton. That may be a non-starter, but we've discussed the fact before that Hamilton might be a name that might be on the move this year. If that were to, you know, if they were willing to do that, then maybe it works for both teams. Pittsburgh upgrades their D. Calgary gets another scoring winger. Both teams benefit. You know, not really sure that it's the best move that both teams could make, but it kind of makes sense based on their needs. If you take a look at New Jersey and Minnesota, they both need to add some more scoring as well. So it kind of makes sense, and they may have the pieces to go back that the Penguins would want. Obviously, Minnesota, maybe they'd consider moving one of their young defensemen, maybe, you know, like a Brodin or a Dumba. Hard to say what the Penguins would want, but either way, those teams to me make sense that they'd have the pieces that Pittsburgh would want in return if Kessel were to get traded. I mean, I've seen other teams mentioned as well. I just don't see the fit. Arizona situation to me is interesting. I'm not sure that Phil Kessel would want to go to the Coyotes, because you think coming off back-to-back Cup championships and another good playoff run this year that he'd want to go to a more contending, winning club. But there is that relationship with Rick Tocchet that might be appealing to him. And we all know Phil Kessel doesn't really enjoy dealing with the media, kind of likes to fly under the radar, and a lot of those other things that Kessel would like would be available there in Arizona. So I don't know if he would want to go there, but at the same time, it's been heavily rumored that the Coyotes are interested in moving Max Domi. One thing to note is that the Penguins have been mentioned about being interested in Max Domi lately. Not that it probably shouldn't impact things, but you never know. But Max's father, Domi, longtime Leafs enforcer, is extremely good buddies with Mario Lemieux, the owner of the Penguins. So could Mario want to bring in Max? I'm sure he's a player that he not only knows from watching him play, but he knows him quite personally as well. So could there be a connection there? It's an interesting thing to think about. It's an interesting thing to discuss. It's really hard to say if that deal has any legs and if it'll move forward or not, but it's just one of those things. It makes sense. It's fun to think about. Probably not going to happen, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and see what everybody thinks of that connection. And if the Penguins were to make that kind of move, does that make any sense? Now, there'd have to probably be other pieces involved. Considering the money on either side, it wouldn't be straight up 1-for-1. There'd have to be other pieces on both sides to kind of level things out. But give me your thoughts down below. If Kessel is moved, could he possibly go to the Coyotes in a swap with Max Domi involving other players? Interesting thought for sure. Now let's move on here to the Tampa Bay Lightning's Tyler Johnson. Now Tyler Johnson is a player who's obviously had a fair bit of success with Tampa. Smaller player, but still in today's NHL, he's fast, he's skilled, and the size doesn't really matter so much anymore. But he has a no trade clause kicking in on July the 1st with his contract. He has 5 more years at $5 million. And obviously, as we know, Tampa Bay didn't reach their ultimate goal this year. They wanted to get back to the Stanley Cup final, win the Stanley Cup. That did not happen. I don't think the Lightning need to panic here, making these shrewd moves, but it has been suggested that Steve Yzerman may want to shake things up just a little bit to kind of hopefully give them a better shot for next year, and that Johnson is a name that came up as a potential trade target. With the emergence of Braden Point, that kind of creates a lot of more depth for them at the center position, and with Braden Point needing a new contract soon, might be wise to move some money out that might be comparable to Braden Point. So basically Point could do a very similar job that Johnson has as far as putting up the production, similar contract when he is out of his entry-level deal, that type of stuff. I think they're a little bit different player, but otherwise money-wise and contract-wise they'd be similar that way. It actually might even be a point that Braden Point might even be able to demand a little bit more money than Johnson did, to be honest. But at the same time, the Lightning do have a lot of younger players with those contracts. They're going to need raises. So, can they balance all these guys they have longer term? Hard to say. Now, if they were to move Tyler Johnson, more likely I would think they'd probably want a defenseman in return. They do have obviously a pretty good decor back there. However, I think they might be looking to make that younger. You've got 3 guys north of 30, which isn't that terrible, but based on today's league and everything being so young and fast, you've got Dan Girardi, Coburn, as well as Strawman, all 31 and up. So certainly a possibility that over the next year or so that some of these guys are going to start to move out. Hedman and McDonough aren't too bad. I think they're 27, 28 respectively. You've got Sergachev's quite young. So they have a good mix of different age varieties there on the back end. But to add another, mid-range, like younger, early to mid-20 defenseman back in there would probably fit well and kind of give them a little bit more flexibility as some of these guys get a little older and start to work their way out of the organization. So could Johnson be on the move? The time to do it would probably be this summer at the draft, before his no trade clause kicks in and he has a lot more say on where things go should they decide to move him in the future. So let me know your thoughts on Tyler Johnson. Now, one last little bonus thing here that I'm going to mention before we go is the John Tavares Sweepstakes. Now, this is not a trade, but I would have to see some trades happen to make this happen. As we all know, Lou Lamoriello recently went to the New York Islanders, which probably increased the odds of JT staying with the Islanders. But should he hit free agency, we've talked about it here before, there's a lot of speculation on A, who's going to be interested, and B, where would he want to go? And another team that I've recently come across that apparently is quite interested, and this thought came from Elliot Friedman. So obviously it's more than anything a thought on his part, but based on the fact that the Chicago Blackhawks was the team he brought up as being interested. Now, doesn't surprise me they'd be interested. Who wouldn't be? But they have severe cap issues, so they would have to be able to move a bunch of money out to bring him in. Now, I did see a wild and crazy rumor not too long ago, I didn't put much stock into it, that the Hawks were looking to move Jonathan Toews. But the source that it came, I didn't bother doing a video about it on here. It's a source it came from. I didn't really trust enough to discuss it as an actual rumor that had anything to it. But they would have to move out comparable type money to bring in a John Tavares. Obviously, Tavares is going to probably command $10.5, $11 million, maybe more. I don't know. They don't have that kind of flexibility in the salary cap to make that kind of move without moving money out. So, do you see the Chicago Blackhawks maybe trading some players out to possibly take a run on John Tavares? So, obviously, for the Blackhawks to bring in John Tavares, they'd have to move out quite a bit. So, it seems a little bit far-fetched, but it's a thought. Basically, what Elliot Friedman was saying is he doesn't think that the ownership of the team is going to tolerate them having another bad season like they did this past year. They haven't finished that low in the standings in a long time, and that they would be a team to kind of watch for, making some bold moves this summer to make sure that they improve enough to get back into the playoff race next season. Now, could I see them doing something? Absolutely. Taking a player like Tavares, I don't know. I think it's a little bit far-fetched just because of the amount of money it's going to take to do it, and they just don't have that kind of flexibility. But give me your thoughts down below. Can you see the Hawks trading some players out to make room for a John Tavares should he hit free agency? Now, if you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.